Okay, so to start, I've already added the tabs to the zipper. So the longer tabs go on the 6-inch zipper and the shorter tabs go on the 9-inch zipper. First I just kind of sewed them right sides together over the zipper, and then you fold and press, and then we're going to top stitch along all of them. The longer tabs don't have a lining piece, but you can make a lining piece if you want. It's not really necessary because you don't really see that part of it. Okay, so the next thing I do is I do an all fabric version because I don't use vinyl yet. I also don't like webbing for the little connector pieces. So I take a 4-inch by 2-inch square rectangle, I fold it in half, press it, and then I press the sides into each other like that, and then I fold it in half. And I'm just going to stitch down both sides. Alright, so I've done that. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm doing all fabric, no vinyl, so I interface all my fabric before I even cut it out. And I interface everything, lining pieces, outside pieces. So next I'm going to take one of my long rectangle strips, this is like the front pocket, and a lining piece. Sorry about the noise. I'm going to line them up right sides together, and I'm going to stitch along the top. So if you have a directional fabric, make sure you're stitching along the top. And I believe it's a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm not really sure, I quit looking at the directions.
Yes, I'm making you cereal. Yeah, I got the milk actually.
Okay, and then you just kind of open it up, and then I'm going to fold it, press it, and then we're going to top stitch. Okay, so I've top stitched that. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to grab my other main piece and my 6-inch zipper, and I'm going to line them up, you know, the way that you'd want them to go, and then you just flip it down and line it up. And then we're going to sandwich that with a lining piece. Then we're going to stitch along that top, and then we're going to flip it and top stitch. Flip, press, and then top stitch. Okay, so next you're going to take 2 of your lining pieces, and from the bottom with the corners cut out, you're going to measure up 1 3/4 inch, and just make a line. You can do that for both pieces. And then you're going to take your zipper pocket for one of them, and you're going to put it face down, right sides together, and then you're going to line it up down here, covering the bottom corners with that line, and you're going to stitch the 3/8 inch stitch line, and then we'll fold it up kind of like that, and we'll top stitch the bottom here. And you're going to do the same thing with your pocket piece, with your other lining piece. You're going to take your pocket piece face down, you're going to line it up with the line at the bottom, we're going to stitch it, and then we'll fold it up, press it, and top stitch along the bottom. Okay, now that we've top stitched, we have the pocket here, and then we have the zipper pocket. You can see that's the bottom corner. I've stitched it down here, this line. So the directions say that from here, you're gonna sew a line straight down from this edge of the zipper and straight down from the edge of the zipper, lining it up with your top stitch here. I personally like to just leave this pocket bigger. This pocket too, there's directions to go right down the middle. I like to go a little bit off to the side so we have like a phone pocket and a bigger pocket on the back. It's all personal preference. You can also just leave it open too. Totally up to you. Okay, this next step I guess I did a little backwards. Well, I just skipped a spot. 'Cause yesterday I was making one and I got ahead of myself and had to reseam her a couple times, so I was being extra cautious. But anyway, top of this zipper panel, you're gonna take the long skinny rectangle piece you have, and we're just gonna line that up on top of this zipper part, but I'll move the lining out of the way unless you watch this video first and do this part before you attach it to the lining piece. Anyway, so we'll just line it up here. We'll sew it and then we'll flip it up and top stitch it. Okay, so now we've done that. Again, you can do it in the right order. So if you look closely, I've got that. My lining piece is still separate. It's sewed there. So you're gonna flip it over and you're gonna line it up. You're gonna take a straight ruler and we're gonna trim off this top section so it's all the same height. And then, oh, that's it. Yep. Okay, so now they're the same height. We are going to take our top zipper piece. Again, I just like to make sure that my zippers are going to go the same direction. And we're going to flip it down. We're going to take that and another lining piece, flip that down on top. And again, some of these steps will be different if you're using vinyl. I use all fabric, so you're gonna have to make those adjustments as needed. I'm assuming you know how vinyl gets pieced together a little bit better if you don't have lining pieces the same way I do. But anyways, you're gonna just line that up, make sure it's even. Some of the edges of the tabs are gonna hang over, so I just kind of want to center the zipper there. Again, I'm just gonna sew it together. I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna top stitch it. Okay, so I finished sewing down that edge. So when you open it up, you want to make sure that you have, you know, your zipper pocket with its lining already attached to each other. This lining we're gonna flip down. We're just gonna top stitch, like I said, just right here underneath that top 9-inch zipper. I'll trim those in a minute. I find it helpful to keep this one zipped and then this top one unzipped, at least for now, because then this is, when I'm pulling down here on the bottom of this, kind of keep it straight. It helps pull evenly if the zipper is closed. When I get to the zipper, I'm going to lift up the foot and pull the zipper out of the way. I always back stitch at the beginning and the end. Alright, so there we go. We've got the zipper installed. Hopefully you can see that. We've got top stitching basically at every point. So next we're going to jump back to this back panel and we're going to add in the connectors. Alright, so to the connectors, you're going to just slide the little tab in to your D-ring and then you fold it in half and then you're going to stitch as close as you can to right here and that'll just help secure it in. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to be, this is what you'll have. You'll have 2 of these. And then we're going to come back over here to, this is your back pocket piece, and you're going to measure over 1 1/4 inch from the side, and I just like to make a little mark, and then you're going to line up your D-ring with it facing up with that that mark, and then I just like to play with it until I get it so it's just underneath the stitch line. And we'll hold it in place and then we're going to stitch a box around with an X in the middle. Okay, and this one's not my strong suit, but I'll show you how I kind of do it. So I just hold this out of the way. I've already lined it up. I'm going to start a back stitch. And I'm going to come straight across. I mean, you can use the zipper foot too, because then you get a little closer to that D-ring. I personally am fine with this. So across the top, and then I'm going to lift the foot. Oops, I need one more stitch. Sorry, I'm working at a weird angle here. I'm going to lift the foot, I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to come down the left side of this spot. And again, I'm probably doing this wrong, this is just how I do it. So I came down the left side of the connector, and then I'm going to rotate it, so I'm going to come up diagonally to this top right-hand corner. I mean, I'm sure somebody will tell me I'm doing this wrong, but it works. And then I'll come down this right-hand side. And then I'm going to turn it again so that I'm going stitching along the bottom edge. And I stitch all the way along that bottom edge. And then rather than rotating the whole thing, I just kind of back stitch very carefully along that bottom edge back to the other corner. And then I'm going to rotate it and come back up to the top left corner. So I'm just making a cross in the opposite direction. And then I will back stitch. I'll lift it up, and that's what you have. Just trim. That's kind of what it looks like in the back. So I didn't get quite straight. Like I said, it's not my strong suit, but as long as you use a thread that matches, it's fine. Plus, it'll mostly be covered up by your pocket, and hopefully nobody's looking in there to examine your handiwork. Okay, so now you've got both of them installed. Your pocket, again, I've stitched down the side, so I have like a smaller pocket over here and a large pocket on this end. So next we're going to take our zippered pocket, and we're going to sandwich it with our pocket panel here, face down over the top of our zipper side. And then on the back side of that, face up, we're gonna have our last lining piece. So we have lining facing up, and then our zippered piece facing up, and then our pocket piece facing down. And we're gonna stitch along this top, and then we will flip it and top stitch over that seam. Okay, so I've top stitched that. Next you're gonna flip the lining piece up and out of the way, and then the very bottom pocket piece up. I'm showing this up because I accidentally stitched everything together because I wasn't paying attention. So from your right side, you should have, your zipper, your pockets on either side. If you flip it over, you should be able to see the zipper on the back as well. So you want to keep it open like this, flip it over, and we're going to top stitch right along this last seam that we just did. Okay, so now you're left with this. Everything's top stitched along every seam to keep it nice and flat. Last thing to do is if you go through the straight edge, like a straight ruler, and you can trim all of this to make it one long even seam on either side. Because like the tabs stick out a tiny bit here and there. I personally just like to start stitching together, and then I trim it before I flip it inside out. So to put it together, I mean, you could, like I said, you go trim that first. You're gonna do, your two lining pieces are gonna come down here, and your two outer pieces are gonna be up, and we're gonna stitch along the full bottom of the outer pieces. You're gonna go along both sides, and then for your lining pieces, when you put them together, I just stitch in a couple inches on this side, couple inches on this side. You wanna leave a nice big opening here in the middle to be able to flip it. And I will show you that here in just a moment. Okay, so I've done everything. Here's my my lining piece. As you can see, I've stitched a little bit on that end, a little bit on this end, and I've left a nice big opening here in the middle, so I can turn it inside out. This is the part where I would go through and I would trim my sides, because I haven't done that yet, before I flip it. Also, forgot to mention, you want to, before you sew everything shut, make sure your big zipper in the middle is open. It'll make your life much easier if you do that before you stitch everything shut. But next we're gonna box the corners. So I'm gonna take this corner, and I like to face it, towards me. So you're gonna open up the corner here, and you're going to squish it so that the seams line up here in the middle, kind of like that, and we're gonna stitch right here across the bottom of that, and we're gonna repeat that for all four corners. Okay, so now I've done that with all four corners, so you can kind of see I've lined it up here. Now I'm just gonna trim that. So we're just gonna trim each corner. So it's less bulky once you've flipped it. And then we are going to just reach right here within the lining, and you're gonna go in through the middle of your zipper, and you're just gonna flip it inside out. Okay, so I've got it mostly, and then while your lining's still open, you wanna put your hand through, and you want to really go through and poke out all of your corners here. Same as the top up here by the zipper, the corners of the zipper. have some threads I forgot to trim, but I'll trim those here in a minute. You just want to kind of poke everything out as good as possible. It's a lot easier to do while you can still get inside. Okay, and then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to leave your line. You're going to pull your lining out a little bit, and we're going to close up this bottom. So I just like poke it out a little bit, and I line up the seam like this opening. You can press it again if you want, otherwise I just kind of hold it, and you're just going to top stitch, like it's a straight little stitch here at the bottom. Alright, so I've stitched that close. I just use my machine. You can go through and hand stitch it, make it invisible if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. And you're just going to push your lining back in, and that's it, you're done. You finished. So here's the back. Last thing to do is just attach your strap with I like to use the swivel hooks because then it's, you know, you can take them off, put them back on, adjust them. And there's the front. And here you can see it's fully lined inside. And then you've got your back pockets. You've got one here and then a big one back here.